This is the Peabody Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee. On June the 5th, 1966, 32-year-old James Howard Meredith was waiting the arrival of other supporters of his march against fear to begin. He had planned to walk from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi, a distance of some 220 miles. It was around 1:45 p.m. and only a few supporters had arrived, so the march started early. There was no major civil rights leaders supporting this march, and at the beginning hardly no security at all. Even though only 4 years earlier, James Meredith had been instrumental in desegregating the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss. The little group of marchers left the Peabody and over to Beale Street, and then on to Highway 51. Meredith wanted to encourage the black population of Mississippi to register and vote without fear. They walked down Highway 51, walking past Graceland, the home of Elvis. They continued walking until they got within 1/4 of a mile of the Mississippi state line, somewhere in this vicinity. They were informed that a large number of unruly crowd was waiting at the Mississippi state line. They were making threats against Meredith's life. It had to be broken up by the Tennessee Highway Patrol. Now the state line is down here at this red light. Meredith decided to continue the march the next day and was driven back that night to the Lorraine Motel to spend the night. The next morning on the 6th, he crossed into Mississippi. Now we're taking the same route down 51 that the Meredith party took. He refused to call it a march. He said that a march was a demonstration, and this was not a demonstration. But he wanted to show that a black man could walk anywhere he wanted to in Mississippi. As he reached Mississippi, the threats grew stronger. Men would drive by, shouting threats and slurs, blowing horns and waving Confederate flags, and shouting, "You'll never reach Jackson alive." The Mississippi Highway Patrol and the FBI agents riding in cars back behind the marchers. There was still no major civil rights leaders participating in this walk. And this is the walkers as they entered Hernando, Mississippi, some 30 miles south of Memphis. The marchers, you could see, was very thinly placed, and it was only a few. Now this is the walkers heading south toward Hernando. The walkers appeared to stay on the east side of the highway, walking facing the traffic, because he said it was his intent not to block traffic. The route led the marchers by Court Square in Hernando. Now this is Meredith talking to some of the residents in Hernando. The march finally continued on down Highway 51. Some 3 miles or so, the march had passed what's now known as North Belmont Road. And some 100 yards or so south of Belmont Road, the unthinkable happened. Now we are now at that spot, looking back up north 51 towards Hernando, where in 1966 there was a small store on Belmont Road, and a lot of the reporters and marchers had actually stopped there to get food and drink. However, Meredith continued walking on ahead. Now it's where this car, you can see the car that was coming out off of Belmont Road onto Highway 51. Now Meredith was walking on the other side of the highway from us, and he was walking towards us. And when he had reached this spot, a shot rang out. It come from behind bushes and honeysuckle vines. It was Aubrey Norval, an unemployed hardware clerk from Memphis, had shot James Meredith. Meredith fell to the pavement. He could actually see the gunman hiding in the weeds. Wounded, he tried to crawl to the other side of the road away from the shooter. He was hollering for help. He was struck 2 more times by a shotgun blast. Reaching finally this side of the highway, the west side, and then collapsing. Ironically, it seemed that no one tried to help James Meredith at the critical time. The shooter simply walked off and later, of course, was apprehended, offered no resistance, and was quickly arrested. He gave no reason for his action. He had parked his 1963 Bonneville Pontiac in the driveway up there where the blue garbage cans are. And he walked back down through the woods to wait on the Meredith party. James Meredith, of course, was rushed to the hospital where surgeons removed some 70 or more pellets from his back, legs, and shoulders. And he still carries some of those pellets that couldn't be removed to this day. The next day, civil rights leaders from all over rushed to Meredith's bedside, such as Dr. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, Roy Wilkins of the NAACP, and others. The civil rights movement was basically dying in 1966. And this was the sort of thing that was just needed to revive the movement. Now they quickly took over the march with a lot of disagreement between the different organizations. Meredith, even after he recovered from his wounds, refused to join the march until it reached Jackson. Now, James Aubrey Norval pleaded guilty to assault and battery with intent to kill. He was sentenced to 5 years with 3 years suspended. He was released from the Mississippi State Prison at Parchment after serving only 18 months. But he was the first white man to serve any time at all in a Mississippi prison for shooting a black man. Norval has never explained why he shot James Meredith, or why he used birdshot instead of the regular shotgun shells that would have done more damage. James Meredith later lost favor with the civil rights movement for doing such things as supporting Governor Ross Barnett for re-election, the very same governor that had tried to block his entrance into Ole Miss. He also supported numerous Republican candidates. He marched against black-on-black crime. He also thought that the liberal movement was actually hurting the black cause in America. Now, I believe the United States Air Force that Meredith entered in 1951 at the age of 18 had a great influence on him, as I believe the military had also an influence on his friend Medgar Evers. Not only did it teach him discipline, but socially, the military was far more advanced than the general public. And I believe that it showed Meredith what America could be instead of what others believed it was. Now, the importance of this march accomplished, in my opinion, more than any other civil rights movement for the blacks in this country, more so than all the other accomplishments combined, I believe, because it brought federally armed marshals to register voters in Mississippi, which, of course, later on applied to all states. Without this act, I believe that it would have been impossible for us to have now had a black president.